Namaste, welcome everyone for today's webinar. Will Hindus ever transcend caste? We got the music going in the background. There's a poll open. Nitinji from Vyara in Gujarat, glad to have you with us today. And Kumuji from Boston, I see you in the chat or in the participant window. Let us know where you're zooming in from. I'm Ankur Patel, Director of Outreach, joining from Los Angeles. Thank you for joining early. Please share in the chat where you're zooming in from. We'll keep the music going. We'll get started in about 9-10 minutes at the top of the hour. Thank you for joining early. Namaste. Kalyan is joined. We'll get started in about 5 minutes at the top of the hour. Kalyan, you want to do an open check and say hi to our guests? And if you haven't yet, please put in the chat where you're zooming in from. Go ahead, Kalyan, say something, please.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. You're in Dallas?
Right.
Nice. We got Nitinji from Gujarat, Hari Iyerji from Santa Maria. I'm Ankur Patel, your host from Los Angeles. Mohinderji from Maryland. Thank you for joining today's webinar. Asking the question, will Hindus ever transcend caste? Kalyanji was asking this question as we were thinking about this webinar. We'll get started in about 4 minutes at the top of the hour. I have the poll going right now. You might be able to see if you're a regular, you may have filled it out before. If you're a first timer, I like to keep track of that a little bit. So please sit tight. We'll get started in 4 minutes. Unless Kalyanji, you want to say anything or share anything before we get started?
Not really. I'll wait for the top of the hour.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Yeah. SM Krishnanji from Chicago, glad to have you on. Sahasranamji from Dallas, first timer, glad to have you on. You can see we have a graduate division with big programs like Doctor of Hindu Studies, MA in Hindu Studies. We have many community education division programs that are certificates. And we're continuing to add programs and offerings, especially with the recent acquisition, well, now a year old, of the California College of Ayurveda. But we're continuing to grow. We offer a lot of courses. This is a past retreat. We'll get into that one. And get into today's webinar just shortly. Anybody else want to share where they're joining from? Namaste. Welcome, everyone. Venkatji from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Glad to have you with us today. Arts, get the recording. Recording's going. Oops. All right, so let me get started with today's webinar. Will Hindus ever transcend caste? This was a question Kalyanji was asking about as we were getting set up for this upcoming quarter, where Kalyanji is going to be offering a course. But Kalyanji, let me just introduce you first, and then I'll get into the subject that we're going to be covering. And please share in the chat if you're joining us from wherever you are. Just share with us where you're joining from, and I can give you a little shout out. But Kalyanji is joining from Dallas. He is the president of Hindu University of America. It's been my pleasure to work with him since we rejuvenated the university back in 2019. Kalyanji brings a unique blend of professional and spiritual experience to his leadership. He holds a master's degree in computer and information science from the Ohio State University and a bachelor's degree in electrical and electronics engineering from BITS Pilani. But it was his 21-year association with Puja Swami Dayananda Saraswati, the founder of the Arsha Vidya Gurukulam and the first convener of the Hindu Dharma Acharya Sabha, that really brought his brought him into this fold, and brought him to be the leader of Hindu University of America. He's had many different roles. Earlier in his career, he led global practices for major software consultancy. I think Tata, like a big vertical for that. So he brings that experience and engagement to his leadership. And he's a teacher. He's also a student at HOA. He takes courses. He reflects on this. It's really a pleasure to work with Kalyanji and invite him warmly to today's webinar. So, Kalyanji, glad to have you on. We got Poonamji from Philadelphia, Godanji from Minnesota. Thank you for joining. I got the little poll up. Let me just end that and share those results. So we have a few first-timers, regulars, attended before. We have 11 folks who have taken a course at HUA, 3 people who have enrolled in a program already. Glad to have that kind of consistency from folks who want to be a Hindu with clarity and confidence, right? That's one of our little things that we discuss. And so one of those things that is so important to being a Hindu and being able to talk clearly, and a subject in that is caste, right? And so that's where this conversation comes up, and we always get stuck into it. And so this webinar, we're going to ask this question: will Hindus ever transcend caste? And Kalyanji is going to talk about what the rigid caste system is, the perceptions that have been embedded in school books and media, academic discourse. Talk about, is it accurate? And if you've ever had a conversation with Kalyanji, he's thought-provoking, he engages, he's a thought leader. We're going to explore how colonial interpretations, Western paradigms reshaped and misrepresented the indigenous concepts of Varna and Jati, right, leading to the creation of what we now call the caste system. Right, Kalyanji's course is called Distinguishing Varna and Jati from Caste. He's taught that a few quarters. And we're going to uncover how terms like casta, which actually originated from Spanish and Portuguese colonial context, were superimposed onto Hindu society, and how this has shaped global perceptions of India. So this is going to be a great webinar. I know Kalyanji's always ready to bring it. And so I'm going to hand it out to you, Kalyanji. Vijay Kane from Houston, Friends of HOA. Glad to have you with us for today's webinar. Kalyanji, let me give it to you to get us started, and I'll be in the background supporting. Just unmute.
Yeah, I'm unmuted now. Okay. All right, Ankur, thank you so much. Can you all hear me? Ankur, can you hear me? Okay. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So let me start by sharing my screen. Let me know if you can see my screen, okay?
Yeah, the screen share is good.
Okay, good. So the question is, will Hindus ever transcend caste? Will we ever be able to get past this bogey called the caste system? And it's not an easy question to answer. Before I proceed, I just want to, say a few words about the community education division at HUA. Our commitment in the community education division is to enable Hindus to become conscious, resilient, and engaged. Okay, and there is the sort of the outcome we hope for from people engaging with the community education division systematically and rigorously. So what does this mean? Well, conscious Hindus, to express your dharma with clarity and confidence, it's part of being conscious, right? Aware, self-aware of our own culture and civilization, the challenges our culture and civilization faces in the world. And resilient, meaning to be able to transmit our dharma successfully to the next generation. And that's a huge challenge too. And lastly, engaged, to fulfill our dharma and provide leadership in the world as a Hindu. Okay, there are a lot of leaders, a lot of people who step up into leadership roles in the world, and they could also benefit immensely from a sustained and rigorous engagement with the courses and programs at Hindu University of America. Okay, so that's a little bit of a plug for the courses and programs at HOA, particularly the certificate program in Hindu Studies and the Master of Arts program in Hindu Studies. Now, I want to start with an example of activism against caste in the United States of America. An example, okay, so this is emerging from Rutgers University in New Jersey. Rutgers defines caste as an inherited and immutable social hierarchy with uneven power relations between groups. Power relations, immutable social hierarchy, immutable, you cannot change it. There's no mobility in this social hierarchy, and there is uneven power relations between groups of people. This is their definition. And they are recommending that that the university, Rutgers University, begin an educational marketing campaign around the operation of caste in university spaces and Rutgers' commitment to ending caste-based discrimination. Okay, in a moment I'll show you the Rutgers report. And even within the report, they acknowledge one thing. When surveying caste in America, we find a sharp contrast between personal experiences versus legal reporting and news reporting. There's a sharp contrast. And they're acknowledging this. Okay. And what they mean by that is, if you survey the legal system in America, the court systems, and you look for the number of instances of complaints filed on the basis of caste-based discrimination. Somebody files a court case, a legal case saying, I have been discriminated against on the basis of my caste. The reality is there's hardly any such cases, very, very few cases. I mean, next to nothing. Okay, leave that alone. If you go to news reporting, is there a plethora, a plurality, a multiplicity of news articles and reports detailing specific instances of caste-based discrimination? And when you accumulate these instances and examples, again, you find that there is not that many. There is hardly any, in fact. Of course, there is a high-profile case of Sundarayar that happened in Cisco, which took a lot of attention over the last few years. But in general, there is not a lot of legal cases, not a lot of news reports on caste-based discrimination. But Rutgers is claiming there is a sharp contrast between personal experiences. Okay, what that means is that Caste-based discrimination is rampant in America, is rampant. It's all over the place. It is almost everybody experiences caste-based discrimination. But it is just not reported in the news media, and it is just not found in the court cases. Okay, this is very, very important. Okay. So what does this mean? Okay, this means that, if you poll people, and ask for their personal experiences, if you ask them, have you been discriminated against on the basis of caste? Or are you a practitioner of caste-based discrimination? Do you discriminate against other people on the basis of caste? They get lots of yeses. I do. Okay, I have been discriminated. I have experienced caste-based discrimination, etc. Okay, so this is a claim. This is a Rutgers University claim, and I'm going to show you the Rutgers report in just a minute. Let me just see if I can pull it up. Yeah, here it is. Can you all see my screen? Okay, so there is this Rutgers University statement and the posting of this report. Let's look at this. Report 2024. So this report was produced in 2024. Caste-based discrimination in US higher education and at Rutgers. So this is a 63-page report. Caste-based discrimination is a problem at Rutgers that limits the potential and opportunities of some in our university community. This report demonstrates the need for our proposed changes to Rutgers policies and actions regarding caste. Okay, and look at the table of contents. Executive summary, introduction, key recommendations, defining caste, harms of caste-based discrimination, caste as a protected category, legal background, educational interventions, bibliography, and further reading. This is the report. It's publicly available. You can download it, no problem. So the executive summary is the Rutgers should add caste as a protected category to its non-discrimination policy. Rutgers should advertise its current policy and future changes to all university community members. Wide-ranging educational opportunities are needed to create awareness and change. There is extensive propaganda must be created to communicate to the people, the poor, the unsuspecting people, that caste-based discrimination is rampant in the campus. And Rutgers should collect further data and caste. Now formal data collection must be engaged on caste-based discrimination on campus. Okay, so this is where Rutgers is going, and so they have created a task force. Rutgers is a strong commitment to diversity, equality, and inclusion. DEI. Okay, and under the DEI framework, they want to examine the issues of caste discrimination impacting students, examine the inclusion of caste as a protected category, and identify best practices to address caste-based discrimination. And, it goes on and on about the problem, what are the recommendations, defining caste. Caste is a global and an American category, right? It's a global category. How caste systems are enforced and perpetuated. Talking about caste. One enduring feature of caste-based discrimination in many communities is a stigma against discussing it. Okay, so the reason why, the logic of the argument is like this. The reason why you don't find examples of caste-based discrimination in the public domain meaning in the news media, in the legal systems, the court systems, etc. The reason you don't find enough instances is because there is a stigma. Okay. Now, if you don't find publicly available instances of caste-based discrimination and legal proceedings based upon cases on caste-based discrimination, then what is the basis of the assertion that caste discrimination is widespread and rampant? Okay, this is a question. Okay, so now I want to ask a question to the hosts and panelists. Have you experienced caste-based discrimination in your life in America? That is a question. Okay, I'm typing it in the chat window. Have you experienced caste-based discrimination in your life in America? Can you please respond to that question? Please, just say it's a yes or no question. Just tell me yes or no. I just want to take a sample. Okay, you can go ahead and answer in the chat window. Okay. Poonam Sharma says yes. Priya says yes. Ravin says no. Okay. All right. So our sample size is, what is our sample size here? Okay. So we got no, 1, 2, 3. No. 4, yes. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it is caste-based discrimination. That's a very good answer. Okay. That's a very good answer. See, suppose, so let's take an example. Suppose a Gujarati chooses only to marry another Gujarati. Okay. If a Gujarati publicly says, I will marry only a Gujarati, and he or she marries a fellow Gujarati, is that a case of caste discrimination? Yes or no? What do you think? Okay, I can substitute Gujarati with anything else, okay? Tamil, Telugu. Okay, if a Reddy from Andhra Pradesh chooses to marry another Reddy, is there a case of caste-based discrimination? The answer is no. It's a matter of personal choice, right? Now, suppose you say, I'm a vegetarian and I prefer to have a roommate in college who's also a vegetarian. Okay, I prefer a vegetarian as a roommate. Is that a case of caste-based discrimination? Yes or no? Give me a yes or no in the chat, okay? No. Okay, however, if you read the Rutgers report, you will find this is exactly, this instance is being cited as an anecdote, where a person, a group of students, they were planning to live in an apartment complex together. And, 3 of them were vegetarians, and they kind of insisted that the 4th one also be a vegetarian. And they expressed it pretty strongly, saying, we do not want to have a roommate who's non-vegetarian in our midst. And that, in fact, is being called out anecdotally as an example of caste-based discrimination in the report, in that Rutgers report. If you go and read it, you will find that. Now, somehow, if you see, if an Italian marries another Italian, or a French woman marries another French person, or a Latino marries another Latino in South America, it is not immediately represented as caste-based discrimination. Okay, it's not. the language of caste does not even enter the picture. However, it is eminently possible to argue that personal preferences around who we eat with, who we marry, who we room with in our apartments, whom we hire in our professional activities and so on, can be very easily reframed as cases of caste-based discrimination. Okay. So if somebody files a lawsuit, as it happened in the case of Sundarayar, filed a complaint with the HR department, I have been not promoted because of my caste. Okay. And the hiring manager says, no, it had nothing to do with caste. It was a performance-based decision. It was a competency, experience, and fit for the role based decision. I didn't promote this person. I didn't hire this person. But if the person, if the employee, a prospective employee says, no, it is not at all about my competence. It is not about my experience. It is not about my fit. It is about my caste, and I know it is about my caste. Okay. And I was discriminated against. And he takes that matter to an HR department in any organization. Could be a corporate organization, it could be a university, it could be a school district, it could be any kind of organization in the country. If somebody says, I have been discriminated against on the basis of caste, okay, and the other person says, no, it had nothing to do with caste, it had everything to do with competence and experience and fit for the role. Now, what is at issue is who needs to prove that it was or wasn't a case of caste-based discrimination. Who needs to prove? Is it that the complainant, meaning the person who's filing the complaint, they need to establish through evidence, mind you, it's not just a declaration, right? I just declare I was discriminated against without any evidence. Okay. If you go to a court of law and says I was discriminated against, I have no evidence to show for it. I just feel like I was discriminated against. Okay. Will their complaint stand? Will their complaint stand? And on the other hand, if the other person has to prove that no, it had nothing to do with caste, it had everything to do with other parameters, which I can show with documentation and so on. Okay. Who has the burden of proof of demonstrating that, yes, I was discriminated on the basis of caste, or I was discriminated, caste-based discrimination had no role to play in this choice? Okay. This is the issue at play in America. This is the issue at play, meaning who gets to prove. Okay. What universities like Rutgers are doing are they are intelligently creating the conditions under which the burden of proof can be shifted to the accused. And the accused has to now prove that they did not engage in caste-based discrimination. And while the matter is litigated in a court of law on the basis of evidence, the accused can be tarred, can be demonized, can be his reputation can be damaged in the court of public opinion by issuing statements, by protests, by declarations. People can be fired just on the basis of the complaint because the conditions in the environment where there is so much rhetoric about the apparently widespread prevalence of caste-based discrimination, it creates the conditions in which the burden of proof can be shifted to the accused. The accused has to now prove that they were not guilty. Are you following what I'm saying, everybody? This is the condition. Well, you know, uh, there has to be evidence one way or the other. Okay, the burden of proof was on the accuser. The burden of proof, in American law, nobody is guilty until proven to be guilty. That is called the presumption of innocence. Innocent until proven guilty. Okay, and the burden of evidence has to be preponderant. There has to be a preponderance of evidence. And the marshalling of evidence and the argument is very critical to demonstrate that indeed this is a case of caste-based discrimination. Okay, Poonam Sharma. Are you an attorney, Poonam Sharma? Let me know. Are you an attorney? Please say yes or no, okay? So, you see, the thing is, no, you don't. Okay, so the rules of evidence, if you look in the courts of law, right, the evidence has to be mustered by the accused. Okay? Otherwise, anybody can accuse anybody and the accused becomes guilty by definition. And if you create conditions in which the accused is guilty by default, just because they've been accused, then these kinds of efforts, the DEI efforts by Rutgers University are directed towards creating conditions in which the accused is presumed to be guilty. Okay? That's where it is headed. And I wanted to make this point so that we are clear about this. In the report, there's a lot of other things going on in this report. Okay, there's a lot of features of their experience. So it is all based upon anecdotal evidence. So apparently they are surveying people, shame and fear around their caste being outed. So they are hiding their caste, ostracized in educational settings by peers, poor treatment and opportunities in the workplace, being denied service in local business or places of worship, discrimination in interpersonal relationships, verbal and physical attacks. In other words, Rutgers is collecting data on this, to highlight the trauma of caste. Right? And they are just one among many. If you go down, it's all testimony based. And it is all informally organized in the sense it's not rigorous. And then, of course, calling to support other universities, existing efforts to address caste at other universities. U.S. university efforts to address caste-based discrimination, fall 2019 through winter 2024. And look at this. Barnard College, Columbia University, Branda University, Brown University, California State University System, Colby College, Colorado College, Harvard University, Scripps College, University of California, Davis, Amherst, Michigan, Minnesota, and on and on and on. And they're all trying to add caste as a protected category in their non-discrimination laws. Some of them are succeeding, some of them are not succeeding, but it is an effort that is relentless. And at the heart of it is the importance of naming caste. Okay, the moment you introduce this law that caste is a protected category, okay, the consequence is it is now going to require that every Hindu, and only Hindus, by the way, this is a very Hindu-centric thing, Hindus must reveal their caste. You understand? See, to legalize caste-based discrimination as a protected phenomenon, okay, to say that, hey, caste-based discrimination is outlawed, and we want to protect people from being discriminated against on the basis of caste, and we want to protect people from the apparently widespread incidents of caste-based violence. We had to enshrine in law that caste is a protected category. If you do that, then the consequence is the castes of people, everybody must be publicly identified. Who am I? What is my caste? I must be able to say it. What is your caste? Because how can you argue that this was a case of caste-based discrimination without identifying the caste of the discriminator and the caste of the discriminated, and then without establishing a hierarchy between the two? And none of this exists in America. None of this language exists in American law. But there is this tremendous grassroots effort going on right now to introduce caste-based discrimination as a protected category in the United States of America. And let me assure you, Hindus are completely unprepared to deal with it. They're unprepared. One day they'll be accused of having discriminated somebody. And it'll come as a shock to them. It's like, what, me? Discriminate? I never did anything. But you've been accused. And now you have to defend yourself. Okay? That's the first time the Hindus will become aware of this problem. Why? Because amongst the Hindus, being unaware is a fashion. Okay? Being unaware, uncaring, apathetic, not interested is a condition of being Hindu today. Okay? As long as I am okay, my family is okay, I'm living a decent life, I got a job, and I have my fun and have my entertainment, I'm good. Why should I care about all this? Why should I care about, as long as it is not me who is being accused of caste-based discrimination? Why should I care that my neighbor was accused of caste-based discrimination? Okay. This, unfortunately, is a critically important condition of being Hindu in the modern world. Nobody cares until it affects them. Okay. This is the context in which we are talking about this phenomenon called caste-based discrimination. So at the heart of all these initiatives is the assertion that caste-based discrimination is rampant. And the evidence is anecdotal. Anecdotal meaning you make up 10 instances where people say, I was discriminated against, and I don't have to prove it. I just feel like I was discriminated, and this is what happened. And therefore, the 10 instances, anecdotes, now constitute evidence that caste-based discrimination is rampant in the United States of America. This is the case that universities like Rutgers are trying to make. Okay, and as Hindus, we must understand that this is what is happening. Okay. And the problem is, in the background of this is that more than 9,000 books have been written about the caste system. It's a hierarchical, oppressive system. There is a hierarchical, oppressive caste system. It is sanctioned by Vedic texts and traditions, Hindu texts and traditions. It is essentially Hindu in character. It needs to be eradicated for India to progress. And if it can't be eradicated, Hinduism must be dismantled in its entirety. Or at the very least, it must be reformed. Okay. So people can agree, well, we don't want Hinduism to be destroyed and dismantled, but we can agree that it must be reformed. Okay. This is the condition. This is the awareness level of most Hindus. I'm not saying this. This is being said by Professor Arvind Sharma in his book, The Ruler's Gaze. And this is the mainstream narrative about the Hindu caste system. There was a book recently that came out a few years ago by Isabel Wilkerson, okay? And she quotes Dr. B.R. Ambedkar copiously in her book, where according to Oprah Winfrey, she gives a masterful portrait of an unseen phenomenon. In America, she explores through an immersive, deeply researched narrative and stories about real people how America today and throughout its history has been shaped by a hidden caste system, a rigid hierarchy of human rankings. Beyond race, class, or other factors, there is a powerful caste system that influences people's lives and behavior and the nation's fate. And she goes ahead and links the caste systems of America, India, and Nazi Germany. Wilkerson explores 8 pillars that underlie caste systems across civilizations, including divine will, bloodline, stigma, and more. And more. And this book, Oprah Winfrey was so impressed by this book. She bought thousands of copies of this book and sent it to important audiences across the country. Can you tell me who her audiences were? Okay. So, can you say who Oprah's audiences were? Who did she mail this book to? Does anybody know? She sent it to thousands of people in America. Her audience was academics, politicians, celebrities, yeah, but mostly CEOs, okay? She targeted CEOs, presidents, university presidents, legislators, and so on. Okay? Executives of Indian descent, yeah, they were naturally included in that list. The West will not let go of caste. Okay, it is a construct that they are very, very deeply committed to. And this is a survey cast in the United States by Equality Labs, promoted and performed and constantly enhanced and expanded by a Dalit activist by the name Tenmuri Soundararajan from Tamil Nadu, a graduate of Harvard University. Okay. And they launched this campaign to vote yes on SB 403. SB 403. Now, and here is an interesting tidbit from the Pew Research Center. So it starts with this statement. Okay, in almost every textbook on caste starts with this system. The caste system has existed in some form in India for at least 3,000 years. It is a social hierarchy passed down through families, and it can dictate the professions a person can work in, as well as aspects of their social lives, including whom they can marry. While the caste system originally was for Hindus, nearly all Indians today identify with the caste regardless of their religion. And this is stated like it's a declared fact. It's a declaration. It has been around for 3,000 years. That's the declaration. Okay. And if you ask people, have you actually gone back in time 3,000 years ago to observe this system in action? Most people will have to admit, no, I did not have the opportunity to go back in time and observe it in action in societies past. But I believe that it was the case. I believe it was the case. 3,000 years ago, this is what it was. 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, it was indeed the case. 200 years ago, 300 years ago, 500 years ago, yes, it was the case. But nobody can go back in time and observe this phenomenon in action. And to be honest, we should say those who agree with it, those who disagree with it, neither can go back in time. Neither. But we can keep on asserting, which is one of the assertions that anchors this narrative about caste. But interestingly, the same Pew report, after doing an extensive survey, it's Pew Research Center, okay, people can look at it, it's online, it's available. Not only do most Indians say that lower castes do not experience a lot of discrimination, but a strong majority, 82%, say that they have not personally felt caste discrimination in the past 12 months. This is Pew Research survey data. While members of scheduled castes and tribes are slightly more likely than members of other castes to say they have personally faced caste-based discrimination. Fewer than 1 in 5, 17%, say they have experienced this in the last 12 months. Okay? This is anecdotal, survey-based data. Now, the data, if you look at the paragraph at the bottom, the data, and you look at the assertion, the declaration in the paragraph at the top, if I ask you the question, does the data support the narrative? Yes or no? What would you say? Does the data support the assertion? What's your opinion about this matter? Does the data, according to Pew Research Center, they themselves are saying we conducted a survey and this is what we found. But they start their whole narrative with this declaration called caste-based discrimination has been around for 5,000 years, 3,000 years. What do you think? I'm just asking a question. What's your opinion? Does the data support the declaration, the assertion? They can state a possibility. So therefore, now let me reframe the question. Come on, not many people are answering, okay? Yes or no? Does the state data support the declaration? Are you not answering because you don't know? You don't have an opinion? You can say, I don't have a view. You can state it as a possibility. Does the data support the assertion? That's all my question. Is it a data-based assertion? No. The answer is no. Okay. The answer is the assertion is running around looking for the data. See, what we have is an assertion, a declaration in our midst that is looking for the data to demonstrate itself. But it stands alone on its own, regardless of the evidence. You don't have to prove it. You just assume it. You say, yes, it's been around for 3,000 years, so it must be there. It must be rampant. And when you start your investigation assuming this assertion, then how you view the data also gets skewed. Yeah, so therefore, Priya, wonderful point, okay? The data is skewed because of the stigma associated with caste-related matters. So again, what does it mean? See, you're saying the data doesn't exist. Okay, the data is not showing the prevalence of caste-based discrimination. But there is no data because of the stigma. Okay, so what happens now? You know that it exists, it's rampant, it's widespread, but there is no data and the data is not there because of stigma. So where are we headed here? We're headed into a condition called truth by assertion, by declaration. Okay, and I want us to understand that we Hindus are caught, whether you subscribe to this and you believe in it, because a lot of Hindus do, they believe this and they've never questioned it. They already know. If you ask Hindus, they'll say, yeah, there's widespread caste-based discrimination. And if you ask them, is there widespread caste-based discrimination? They'll say, yeah, there is. If you say, have you experienced it yourself? It'll go below 20%. Okay, well below 20%. If you ask them, have you discriminated against anybody else on the basis of caste? It'll go well below 1%. It'll go to 0.0001%. Nobody will admit. Instead, they will say, I'm just expressing a preference. So people, the Mohinder ji is saying, comments are visible. Please include hosts and panelists. Why can't we, everybody, include everybody in your comments, okay? Please.
You want to do that, Kalyanji? Usually when we have these controversial subjects, some people take it off the rails. That's why we usually don't let everyone see what everyone is typing. It is interesting stuff, and I guess if we expect everyone to...
No, it is controversial, and people must engage in this controversy, okay? Otherwise, we live in a world with no clarity. on
So
this
I open
matter?
up the chat. I don't know if I can. I don't think I can do it retroactively, but now people will be able to.
No chat. Isn't the chat open already?
It was it was open for panelists to discuss. So
But people are
participants, but
posting. People like,
participants can only discuss with panelists and hosts.
oh, not with fellow participants. Oh,
Exactly.
that is a setting.
Yeah.
But can people
I just
see?
turned it on now. Everyone can see
Okay, all right,
everyone.
everybody can see.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, very good. Okay, now let's go back to my PowerPoint. See, the a law like the SB 403 law that was attempted to be passed by the state of California, and it got vetoed by Governor Gavin Newsom at the last minute, poses an enormous challenge for Hindus. Okay, because the law seeks to end caste-based discrimination and to impose consequences on people who practice caste-based discrimination and caste-based violence. How can you argue with that law? After all, I mean, it seems such a legitimate thing to do, right? I mean, after all, we're only seeking to end caste-based discrimination and to impose consequences on people who practice caste-based discrimination and caste-based violence. What could be wrong with that? But underlying this law is it is a recognition that it's apparently a response to the widespread incidents of caste-based discrimination and caste-based violence in California, a fact that is not established through evidence as fact, but mostly through rhetoric. Mostly through rhetoric. And opposing such a legislation invites the criticism that Hindus are in fact in favor of caste-based discrimination and caste-based violence. If you oppose this legislation, then oh, you are opposing this because you are in favor of caste-based discrimination and caste-based violence. Okay, what are Hindus to do? Remain silent, oppose it, or join SB 403 and similar legislations and say, I'm in favor. I'm in favor of ending caste-based discrimination in America. You know, I support ending of caste-based discrimination. I don't practice it myself, but I strongly condemn it, and I will join the community of people who want this legislation to be passed. And this problem is just the beginning. Okay, SB 403 for the time being got defeated through a veto by Governor Newsom in California. But more is to come in this place. In this space, it's not going to end. The universities are relentless in pushing this. The legislators are going to take it up again. For the moment, they are distracted. But this is going to be central to the life of Hindus in North America going forward. Now, let us look at a certain phenomenon. Okay. See, it is true that India, in Bharat, exhibits lots and lots of jatis, thousands and thousands of jatis. And these jatis are often local. If you go to Andhra Pradesh, you will get one set of jatis. If you go to Orissa, you'll get another set of jatis. If you go to Punjab, you'll get another set of jatis, and so on. And the jati phenomenon is real. Okay. And these jatis historically were thousands of self-organizing communities. Self-organizing communities. Okay. These jatis were mapped in traditional India, meaning ancient India, pre-modern India. They were mapped to the Varnas, the four Varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Chaturvarnyam, Maya Srishtam, Guna Karma Vibhagashaha. Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. And these Varnas are extensively discussed in Hindu texts. Okay. And these jatis, apparently, they map themselves to these Varnas. But if you look at the modern constitution of India, what you'll find is that language is completely different. There are forward castes, there are other backward castes, there are scheduled castes, and scheduled tribes. Okay. See, the Varna category historically guided the formation of Jatis as self-organizing communities. This is lost now. The relationship between Varna and Jati is lost now. Jatis are mapped to these caste categories as per India's constitution: forward caste, other backward caste, scheduled tribes. And the entire discourse on caste is confined to this terminology. Okay, terminology on the right. The terminology on the left is lost. However, everybody assumes that the terminology on the right is in fact exactly the same as the terminology on the left. That is how we can make the assertion that this caste system has existed in India for thousands of years, 3,000 years, 5,000 years, etc. This classification must be the same as this classification, the one on the right. Okay? This is an assumption inherent in the argument, in the narrative, that the caste system as it exists today has existed for thousands and thousands of years in India. Now, if you look at the Indian constitution, India's constitution, okay, it refers to caste a total of 88 times. It refers to scheduled a total of 235 times. It refers to tribe a total of 131 times. It refers to reservation a total of 34 times. It refers to Varna 0 times, refers to Jati 0 times. Okay. If we say that India has a caste system today because of its constitution, which created a new kind of language, not part of its ancient Hindu history, the language of forward castes or general castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward castes, and so on. This language did not exist in traditional India. But a caste system now exists because of the language in the constitution. Would we be right? Would we be right? Let me know what you think. Yeah, would we be right? See, the Constitution of India, and I'm going to show you the Constitution of India right now. Your answer is no. Answer is no. Okay, very interesting. Okay, so this is the Constitution of India. Let's pay attention to this now. This is the Constitution of India. 2024, as of 1st May 2024. Okay, and I will show you in real time what happens. Can you all see my screen, everybody? Can you see my screen? First of all, this Constitution of India has got 402 pages. 402 pages. Can you see it on the right side? Everybody, can you see my cursor? I'm placing it there on the right side. This is 402 pages long. Okay. I would like somebody to look up and tell me how many pages is the US Constitution. Now, in this Constitution, we are going to do some search. If we search for the word caste, okay, there are a total of 88 matches. If you search for the word tribe, there are 131 instances of tribe. If you search for the word reservation, there are 42 instances. If you search for the word scheduled, there are 235 references, in 402 pages. Okay. And you can find them very easily. You just have to say, let's look for something. Let's say scheduled. And let us look for this scheduled. Okay, promotion of education, economic interests of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes. Next. Scheduled caste and scheduled tribal areas. Next. Administration of scheduled areas. Reservation of seats for scheduled caste, scheduled tribes. Goes on and on and on. Claims of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes to services and posts. National Commission for Scheduled Castes, National Commission for Scheduled Tribes. Okay. Scheduled area, scheduled tribe, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, on and on and on and on. And you can do this for everything, okay? You can say start with caste and you'll go on and on and on throughout the document. I'll stop here, okay? See, um, if I ask you this question, right? That does the word caste in any of its forms, caste, tribe, etc., occur in the Hindu texts of traditional Hindu India? Does it occur anywhere? Okay. What do you think? Does it occur anywhere? In the Gita, in the Upanishads, in the Bhagavad Gita? US Constitution was written in 4 pages of parchment. Okay. Current Constitution about 34 pages. What is this Indian Constitution doing with 402 pages? Okay, that's a very interesting question. What were they doing when they created this monstrous document? Vinodji, that's what we are coming to my course. Okay, you have an understanding, and most of our understanding is inadequate. Our understanding is inadequate. Okay, we have a vague understanding because we have lived in an India in a conversational space in which caste has been a persistent conversation, right? And so we have picked up a lot of things, lot of knowledge about the caste system. Okay, but it is a fact, undeniably so, that the language of caste does not exist in Hindu texts. Undeniably so. And the language in the Hindu texts is one of Varna and Jati. Varna and Jati. On the other hand, in sharp contrast, the language in India's constitution consists entirely of caste, and it does not have a single reference to Varna and Jati. Yet, the discourse in the Constitution of India on the basis of caste and the discourse in the Hindu texts on the basis of Varna and Jati are presumed to be one and the same automatically without any inquiry. Without any inquiry. Okay, and this conflation, this kind of commingling these two discourses together allows people to make the claim that the caste system in India has existed for 3,000 years, 5,000 years, because they presume, they collapse these two, making no distinction whatsoever. Okay? That is the course. That is the course. There is a whole course called, distinguishing Varna and Jati from caste. Okay, I'm going to stop here. And Ankur, you want to put up the poll for, asking if people are interested? It is a really great course. It will be eye-opening. It will penetrate this subject with tremendous clarity. It will take a sweeping historic look at the emergence of Varna and Jati in ancient India and how it transformed through the historical periods. It will take a deep look at how the language of caste got introduced into India. Yeah, so how did discrimination ended up in India as a reality? We will look at that. Okay, so this will be a searching, an insightful, and pretty impactful course, and I recommend it very highly. I will be teaching this course, and you'll not regret it. It's a fantastic course. Anybody who's already done the course, please feel free to post what you thought of the course, and please, respond to this survey. And I'll take a few questions in the Q&A box. Yeah, Lakshman
right.
Das. Lakshman Das is asking, Why is caste discrimination applicable only to Hindus? This is the case, Lakshman Das. This is the case because 200 years of colonial era writing has relentlessly made caste the defining feature of Hinduism. Okay. And we should investigate it, explore it, understand it. We should, distinguish it. Because without that, we assume that it is indeed the case. Caste-based national survey to be conducted, India in 2026. It's good. Is it good or bad? Anup Chandraji is asking. Yeah. It's both good and bad, okay? It's not like it's a linear thing. In fact, I agree very strongly with B.R. Ambedkar when he says caste must be annihilated. He wrote a book called Annihilation of Caste in the year 1930, 1935 or 1936, which became a defining document. Okay. The book is called Annihilation of Caste. I agree with him. I totally agree with him that a caste must be annihilated. But I completely disagree with him when he conflates caste with Varna and Jati. When he's talking about annihilation of caste, he's talking about annihilation of Varna and Jati. I disagree. Sorry, Dr. Ambedkar, I don't agree. And this distinction is what we will deeply penetrate in the course. Okay? And everybody who encounters caste in their life, whether in schools, in colleges, in universities, in legislatures, in your community organizations, in the news media, where you are called to respond to the caste problem, you should take this course. Okay, so questions. What came first, Varna or Jati? It's a fantastic question, okay? Fantastic question. So we will answer it in the course, okay? In the course, because it takes a lot to create the categories, Varna and Jati, as they were meant to be. And then it will become clear how the two interrelate. And in fact, I'll tell you, the relationship between those two categories, Varna on the one hand and Jati on the other hand, is totally mysterious to the Hindus. We don't understand it. The two terms, Varna and Jati, have become conflated into the single term called caste. Okay, and we don't know how that happened, and we don't know what to do about it. Is there a plan to place a counter to Rutgers University? There ought to be. There ought to be. But it's very difficult to counter it. You understand? Because, the people who try to counter it will immediately be tarnished, will be labeled as pro-caste people. You're in favor of caste-based discrimination. That's why you are against this initiative in Rutgers University. You must be in favor. You're a pro-caste person. You're a casteist. You see what I'm saying? And, it places Hindus in a predicament that is profoundly inimical to their community, and they don't even know it. That's the Hindu condition today.
Yeah, I took the course also. It was amazing. There's so much information. It's on the HUA learning management system. Kalyanji uploads documents and videos, and you have engaging conversations with your class and cohort. If you haven't taken a course at HUA, and this is a question that is important to you, or you continue having conversations about it, you really should take this course. Geeta ji says already have done the course. Venkat ji, I took it. It was great. SM Krishnaji, yes, an eye-opening course. Geetaji says, brilliant course. I can argue and debate so confidently and forcefully. Venkatji, yeah, so thank you for a few of the folks who've taken the course and made some comments. I totally agree. Please do consider taking the course. Let me drop the details in the chat again. There's a link. You can click and get some more details that way. It is going to start on July 18th. That's a Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern time. It'll go for about an hour and a half, and Koyanji engages in conversation and debate and with the whole class. So it's going to be a very interesting course. I know you iterate every time you teach it. you add and supplement and bring in concurrent or current or modern examples. So it's and what's updated. So Kalyanji, amazing course.
So, let me respond to Mohinderji. He's in the Q&A box, he's making a comment saying we should not be afraid of being tarnished. You can't win a battle without engaging in the battle. Absolutely. I totally agree. Okay. Aisha Wahab is bringing caste laws to CA, California. US politicians are targeting Indian community with caste laws. If you're in the US and Canada or Bay Area, please ensure you do not vote for anyone or not endorsed by Americans for Hindus. Okay, all right. Will America ever transcend color? It's very hard, you know. Uh, okay, all right.
Yeah, I think that's a good question also. Will Americans ever transcend color in a similar way, different structures set up with so much history that people don't know about, right? And that's what this course is about, getting to
So,
understand the
so
real
you know, it
history.
is, it is important. Class, so Priyaji is saying class is yet another caste-based reality in India. See, Priyaji, before you make assertions like this, we have to very carefully distinguish the concepts of class, race, hierarchy, caste, etc. And one of the things that we will do in the course is take a microscopic look, a penetrating look at these terms and how did they emerge historically and what did they signify and how are they are getting conflated. Okay, so I mean, one of the difficulties that we have is we assume we understand all this, but they're not. We don't understand all this. Okay, and this kind of deep penetrative examination of this phenomenon is what the course will undertake over a period of 11 weeks. Okay, so please, my request is if you're interested, just register immediately. Let's get on with this, um, and with the course, and join this effort to try to gain clarity. See, Hindu University of America is not an activist organization. Okay, we're not going to launch a campaign now to go against SB 403 or go against Rutgers and so on. No, what we will do is create courses that distinguish these phenomenon and shine a light where there is largely only a lot of confusion and darkness. Okay, that's our mission. And those of you who are interested should definitely take this course. We should not equate Indian issues with US issues. It's a huge mistake. That is true. But the activists who are perpetrating this, right, people like Equality Labs, they are driving this viciously. And the senator, the congresswoman or whatever, the legislator in California, who's driving this as a matter of personal mission, is this woman called Aisha Wahab. She's a Muslim and from Afghan ancestry. Her parents fled the US-Afghan war and came to the US, and uh, and here she is, a crusader in California in the state assembly on this matter of ending caste-based discrimination. All right, everybody, that is the webinar. SB 509 is the latest one. Yes, is the new SB 509 is the new SB 403. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Ankur, I think let's see the enrollment results. Lakshman Das is saying, are you? I don't understand the question. Should HUA provide counter research to Rutgers? Well, yes. I mean, HUA is not going to do it directly, okay? Directly, because we don't want to get into a combative relationship with Rutgers right off the bat. We do want to educate people. That is very, very important. Yes, definitely. But I have a few questions. Okay, write me the questions. Okay, those of you who have questions, please write me a note. Maybe people, I don't know what else you need. You Yeah, the Priyaji, you're saying, hoping that the class will tackle wealth and power. Absolutely. Power, wealth, privilege, prestige, position, all of it. We'll discuss all of it historically. Okay, everybody, I think on that note, we will complete this webinar, and thank you all very, very much for joining and participating in this webinar. Namaste, everybody. Thank you. Namaste.